One of the most impressive and innovative features in Autograph is the proxy system. And with the proxy system, we can do responsive design, as seen in this example here, where we have one composition, but we have three different designs, three different completely unique designs, all rendering from the same composition. This comp is spitting out three of these designs at the same time. You can see we have the default HD comp, and then we also have a 4:3 PC video option here, a little bit more square, not quite square, but almost. And then we also have a vertical HD comp as well. And again, as you can see, as I scrub this, this is all being generated from the same composition. So this proxy system allows us to create rules that say, hey, if I temporarily change my video here with this drop down or in the render manager when we're outputting, then do these things. So there's a rule that says, hey, if the width of the composition is too narrow, then take these the two words of the text names here and stack them on top of each other. It also says, hey, if this is too narrow, if it gets even more narrow than this, and it gets to be vertical, then take out that WFA logo in the background. So you see we don't have that here. It also says, take this WFA logo and don't show it if the background is wide, but if it's narrow, like it's tall, it's vertical, then make it show. And also, if it's vertical, turn off all this stuff with the text and the versus logo, and then turn on this text treatment down here. All from the same composition. So this is what we're talking about when we talk about responsive design. We change the output, we change the preview area, and it's going to respond. We don't need to create three different designs for our different outputs. We just set up rules and it will automatically just do what we tell it to do. Now, as I've gone around to like trade shows and events and stuff like that, and I've shown people this feature, everyone's blown away. You design it once, and then from the same composition, you have three different designs. I mean, that's incredible. But what is not impressive to anyone is that if I go to this drop down and I change this from HD, let's say to 4K, Ultra HD, and we give it a minute, and we go to 4K, and it looks the exact same. No one cares. No one is impressed. I mean, when I first saw this and started playing with Autograph, I wasn't impressed. Who cares? Downscaling, upscaling, it looks the same. Nobody cares. But to understand the power of this proxy system in Autograph, let's actually dig into the seemingly boring behavior of just scaling up or down and appreciate what's really going on here. This little change we just did going from HD to 4K, it doesn't seem amazing, but let's really appreciate what's happening here. And to do that, I'm going to hop over into Adobe After Effects. I'm not trying to pick on After Effects or anything. It's just a little bit clearer to see what's going on and appreciate what Autograph is doing when we're here in After Effects. So I have here this horrific, terrible design that I created just very quickly to demonstrate this concept. There's like this text that's animating in 3D. This is really embarrassing, folks. This is like bringing shame to my family. This design is so bad, but just stay with me for a second. Now, if I look at the composition settings here, this is in HD, 1920 by 1080, good old HD. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select this and duplicate it. And we don't have to worry about going slow or talking about what's really happening here because this isn't an After Effects tutorial. I'm just using this as a tool to explain what's happening. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my composition settings. I'm going to lock the aspect ratio. I'm going to multiply this times 2 so that this will maintain the same aspect ratio, but then be a 4K composition. So we have 3840 by 2160. Click OK. And you could see what's happened here as I zoom out fully. What's happened here as we've changed the composition size, it's taken it to 4K, but it's taken our content, all of our layers, and left them the same. So essentially what's gone on is After Effects just increased the size of the canvas. Now you might be tempted to say, okay, well then that's fine. I'll just go ahead. It'll take a little bit more work, but I will just scale up every single layer individually in order to have the same design. And you would be correct in thinking that, but you would be wrong. So if I select this fractal noise layer, which is created with noise, fractal noise in After Effects, and that's like this like blue kind of like swirly gobbledygook here. And I can go to the scale property and I will, let's just say, take this up to 200%. 200%, and then we should be just fine. Oh, well, actually, this looks terrible. We have some artifacts here because this is not super high quality. We can add some better anti-aliasing features here, but that makes things look a little bit different, and that's not super high quality. So I'm just going to go back to low. And what we really want to do here is go back to 100%. So this layer is not scaled up. We want to go into the solid settings that this effect is applied to, and we want to take this to 4K. But now you can see that it completely changed my design. So if I go before and after, it's not even the same shape. With all the things that I've done to this layer, it doesn't translate over. So like all of the distortion from the displacement, it just doesn't look the same. We do have that 4K quality, but it's not quite the same. Same thing with this fractal noise in the background here. If we increase this to 200, it gets a little bit soft. But then if we go ahead and bump it up and do this the right way, where we're scaling up the solid that this is applied to, then we don't have the same fire design at all. We have to start from scratch with all of the things that we did. Now let's look at the text. The text is easier to scale up because it's vector. So if I just scale this up, then that's fine. I could scale up all the way and the edges are, they're super sharp no matter what I do, which is fantastic. And everything's perfect, right? Well, not exactly, because if I look at this, once I've scaled it up, look at the before and after of my text. And to maybe make this a little bit clearer, here is the original text. It's kind of like this muddy orange. And then I applied glow, and I spent some time tweaking this just right. So the glow kind of creates this neon effect where we have almost like a gradient around the edges, which makes it feel like it comes to life. You really have to kind of tweak the settings in order to get that. But I did tweak the settings, and I did take the time to get this look, and I like it. So instead of just one color, I turned it into like a gradient because of the color. But the thing is, if we go back to our effect here, and we scale this up to 200%, we lose that effect. We lose the magic of what I created. It's faded. So again, here's like before and after, before and after. And to take this, if we were to shrink this down even more, you could see that it gets even more orange and less like gradient-y, and the glow looks different. And as we scale this up, it gets more yellow. So the glow doesn't quite scale the same way. In the same way the fractal noise doesn't quite scale the same way. And my point here is that just doing a basic scale up of something even as simple as this is not quite so easy. There are a lot of decisions to be made for each of the parameters of each of the effects on each of the layers. But in Autograph, going from HD to 4K was seamless. And you might remember from earlier on in this training series that this is all built from scratch in Autograph. There are shape layers with dashes. There are these 3D keys that I made with shapes from scratch and moved and animated and lit in 3D space with 3D lights. And then there are these little tiny strokes, and there's the glows on the text and all of these shapes that are subtracted from each other. There's a lot of complexity here, and all of it works perfectly. There's a chromatic glow on the stars, and when we go back from 4K back to HD, you can see that the changes are just not even there. It goes through all of the properties on all of the layers and everything and scales it, and it all looks the same. Autograph was designed for this. It was built to be this flexible and customizable. And again, what's going on underneath the hood that will allow all these things to scale up perfectly is really incredible, and it's worth learning about. And me personally, I have not been tasked very often with creating unusual formats for social media, but I think I'm an exception. I think that most people, that's just part of the deliverables in the modern era that we're living in, like delivering to square formats, vertical formats, or different, custom formats. that is something that is extremely common to do. But even if you're like me and you don't find yourself needing to render to a lot of different formats, I still find myself needing to scale up and down all the time. The producer will come back halfway through the work on the visual effects and say, actually, instead of HD, we really want this to be 4K. Or vice versa. We told you 4K, but everyone's just turning it in at HD and it's fine. And so when you need to make these choices where things scale up and scale down, you can lose quality and just scale or shrink the whole entire thing. Or you can do that organically, where every single property is scaling in the correct way, and Autograph will handle all that for you. So again, I think this is something that no matter what your workflow is, everyone can benefit from these tools in Autograph. Oh, a little reminder before we get into the details. When we change the resolution by using this viewer dropdown, we are not actually changing the resolution of our composition. This is only a temporary preview. And Autograph reminds you that this is a temporary override by adding this red outline to this dropdown to indicate that the viewer is currently set to a format that doesn't match the actual format of your comp. Now, to actually change the format of your composition, select your comp in the project panel and then change the settings in the properties. And also remember that the temporary format override in the viewer panel is showing us a preview of what it would look like if we rendered at that format. So if I right click on a composition, add it to the render manager, and then click over here where it says render instance, I could then override the format of the comp from here in the format dropdown. And then it renders at that format, and it will use all the responsive design rules that we set up and examine over the next few tutorials. So here's how this is going to go down. Here's the overview of the next few tutorials, kind of like this, like a mini course inside of the course. What we're going to do is we're going to start in the next couple tutorials with basics that you can do without thinking. So we're going to look at responsive design options inside of generators and modifiers. We'll also look at some basic tools for responsive design. And then after we've done some basic things like that, we're going to dig into some technical info about exactly how the proxy system works. I really think it's important to understand the math. It's not too hard. I mean, for my brain, it's hard because I'm really bad at math, but for most people, it's really not that bad. It's not that complicated. But understanding that will give you some predictability about how things will work when you adjust them in this proxy system and you are playing with this when you're doing responsive design. Now, after we understand that and have some base knowledge about how this goes, then we can start getting into more advanced things. We'll look at composition info and how to use that in your designs, and also the numeric comparator in conjunction with the negate modifier. So let's jump into the basics and get started with responsive design.